All right, hey guys, Steve Speck here with SNS Archery and Rob McConnell. We're doing a spine scope review today, and this all started because we had the Swarovski STC. Swaro sent us the scope to review, and we wanted to basically obviously run it through its paces, see how it performs. The one thing I've learned in doing spotting scope reviews and looking through glass, you have to have it side by side. I got that scope and immediately had a deer hunt, took it up into the mountains, and I was like, I think it's nice, but I couldn't tell. Like, it was a day with bad glassing conditions, and I really needed to get it basically back home and next to a bunch of other spotting scopes. So kind of over the last, we've had it for 3 weeks now, and we've all been taking turns looking through it. And comparing it to everything else. And spoiler alert, there is no perfect spotting scope. It doesn't exist. Everything has trade-offs, whether it's price, size, weight. But we're going to walk you through everything we got here. This is kind of all of the best-selling scopes. Got the Kowa 55, new Swarovski STC 56, a Swarovski ATS with a 25 to 50x wide angled eyepiece. We got an ATX here with a 95 on it. Kowa 77, the Kowa 88. So Rob, what do you think so far after looking through everything?
I'll just start at the beginning and go down the line. I just keep getting amazed at how good this little 55 from Kowa is. It's a little bit tough to stay in when you're glassing for long periods of time, but the resolution is phenomenal. It's as good as anything up here, I think, in its zoom range. How does it compare to the STC? Well, that's the question of the year, I think. It's very good. I would give the edge to the Kowa just barely, but when you consider the eye relief and the wide angle of the STC, I think it's definitely worth paying more for. My glassing style is to glass a little bit with my binos, but I like to stay in the spotting scope a long time. And so for me, this is going to be a better fit than the Kowa because it's going to be more comfortable. It's got 20 millimeters of eye relief, which is huge for a small spotting scope compared to the 16 millimeters on the Kowa. Then you move on to the ATS 65, and where does it stack up? Boy, it just seems to keep getting better and better. It's definitely more comfortable than these two. The resolution, I feel like, is just a step better than these two. And it just feels more comfortable from a glassing standpoint. Really recommend this wide angle eyepiece. You know, we've played with the 20 to 60 eyepiece, and it's just not as good.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed in the field a lot too is that the difference from 50 to 60, we've got an absolutely beautiful night, and I hiked a resolution chart that we taped to a power pole up there, so it's 1,000 yards away, and that's how. One thing I've learned is just you got to be looking at a resolution chart. If you're just pointing at a sagebrush or a deer, any random day you could say this one's better than that one, but when you're actually physically reading lines on a resolution chart, you can tell which is resolving better.
On this STX, we borrowed it from a buddy because we didn't have one in stock, and it feels a little grainy. So I'm not going to put a lot of credit into our viewing situation here on this STX because it's not performing as well as we typically see. Yeah. The 77 has always been my favorite spotter. Optically, I think it's the best that I've talked about so far. And for the money, the size and the weight, for me, it's just that perfect package. Again, I like to sit in the glass for a long time. And so this is definitely my favorite from a resolution standpoint. This dual focus knob makes such a huge difference when you're trying to get that perfect focus, where these barrel focuses really do interrupt the image in that instant where you're trying to get the most perfect focus you can. So we really like this dual focus knob. And then this 88 is new for this year. I thought it was going to be on par with the 77, but it's not. It definitely feels like an upgrade from the 77, not just from a brightness standpoint, but the resolution. It just feels sharper.
Yeah. Keep in mind, these are all outstanding. So we're picking hairs.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
I don't think you could buy one scope and be disappointed. I said, at least if you've got a scenario where you can run them side by side. If you just got this and you went out on a hazy day and it wasn't looking good, I sold, we had a buddy buy a 77. He's like, I wasn't that impressed. And I was like, really? Because you really need to get them out side by side and have it next to another scope at the exact same time to do a apples to apples comparison. That's where having them lined up like this is so valuable. As Rob said on the focus wheels, you really notice it. We were hooking my iPhone with the phone scope up to all these, and when you're dealing with the barrel focus, you just induce a lot more vibration into the scope, so it's harder to find that fine focus. Where on the Kowas with the fine focus wheel, it's just a smaller movement, certainly easier to like get on focus faster. Oh yeah, I'm same as Rob, basically starting with the Kowa 55. I've been using that scope on and off for quite a few years. You know, if you're just up in the mountains and I'd like to just throw my binoculars on a tripod, do a lot of glassing that way. And if I see something that needs a closer look, that's where the 55 is fantastic, to just pull it out of the pack real quick, throw it on the tripod. It gets up to 45x, has really good resolution. At the chart up there, we can read about line 4. There's 10 lines in total. With the 88, I can almost get kind of definitely line 7, maybe line 8, depending on how fine the focus is. But it's not that drastic a difference when you're just talking about reading resolution. Light gathering is obviously a different story. What's the 55 weigh? 28 ounces?
28 ounces on the 55 and 34 and
34 on the STC. I would say I'm disappointed in the STC. I had higher hopes for it. I was hoping it was going to kind of run neck and neck with an ATS 65, like latest and greatest optics. Better coatings maybe. The ATS is an old scope, although we have talked to Swaro recently and they have kind of upgraded some of the technology in it, I think, as they've improved their manufacturing capabilities. So overall I'm disappointed in it. I don't know where it fits with the Kowa 55 being fantastic little scope. It's lightweight, and then the STC, it is a more comfortable viewing experience for sure. And
the field of view is considerably larger.
So if you're buying STC, if you're what?
Personally, again, for me, it goes back to glassing style. Like you said, if you're binoculars guy and then you want to throw a spotting scope up, that's where I would pick the 55. If you do both, but you spend a lot of time under the glass, I would go with the STC, or I like the ATC a little bit better, just more comfortable. But yeah.
Moving on to the ATS 65, like shortcut to my ending here. I think it's the best scope in the whole thing, considering size, weight, bulk, in your backpack. And preface this with, we're always backpacking, right? So size and weight does matter. If I'm on a sheep hunt or something like that, where you absolutely need all the glass possible, then you're going to jump up to a 77, 88. But for just your all around, considering size and weight and price, that ATS 65 is phenomenal. This is actually Mark's, that works for us on Exo Mountain Gear side, his scope. We went on a bear hunt this spring. I had an ATX 65 and he had this ATS 65, and we ran them side by side for a whole hunt, and I thought the ATS was better. He thought the ATS was better. I don't know what they've done to improve it, but it is a phenomenal scope right now. Again, this is our buddy's scope. Something's going on here. It's not comparing to the rest of them. It's very grainy and it's not dusty. We don't know what's going on, but there's something going on that eyepiece. Kowa 77 is fantastic scope. I was on a Dall sheep hunt in Alaska this year. My guide / best friend Tyler had the 77, and we packed that as our one scope, and it's just a phenomenal. Certainly when you want a bump up from the 65s without a big sacrifice in weight, because this 77 weighs the same as an ATX 65, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
It's just a phenomenal scope, and the Kowa 88. This is first time really looking through this. You can almost read, down to line 8 on that resolution
crazy,
chart.
yeah.
Compared to everything else, it's phenomenal. You're line 4, line 5, maybe 6, line 6 here, and line 7 and 8 here.
Yep.
So if you're after the absolute best glass you can get in front of your eye, this Kowa 88 is impressive.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
And this is jumping up to how many ounces?
67, I believe.
67. So that's a big, you're talking a 20-ounce jump from a 65. Yeah. So that's kind of quick and dirty. We've been out here. It's getting kind of twilight evening-ish. We're going to stick through till dark and just see what changes, especially between these smaller 55, 56s and you get into the bigger objectives. But really the short answer is, and I wish there was like the perfect scope that exists, but it doesn't. You just got to pick your poison. Do you want more bulk and weight for absolute performance? Kowa 88, 77's a happy kind of step down from that. ATS 65, for me, for my backpacking hunting style, I think is the perfect scope. Like I said, I rarely, that was my point earlier, you rarely do that jump from 50 to 60. Do the atmospheric conditions allow you to kind of maximize that? Tonight's a perfect example, super clear. You can kind of use that extra boost, but in the field, traditionally for me, it just doesn't seem like that plays that much of an effect. You know, as expected, the smaller scopes start diminishing. You certainly haven't really lost lines on the resolution chart up on the hill as it's getting darker with the bigger scopes, but certainly are losing them with the smaller scopes. The ATS 65 continues to impress.
It stays so crisp.
It's very crisp. It's darker than the other scopes, but still plenty enough light, I think, to, basically, you're not going to miss anything. It's just a little bit darker of an image. But what's unique is it hasn't lost any resolution. It's darker, but it's got the resolution still super clear. 77's
starting to get a little bit
darker, a little bit resolution lost probably from earlier, just a touch. And then the 88's still just fantastic. And again, something's off with this 95. It just doesn't look right. Both Rob and I have a ton of experience with the ATX. It's been around for a long time. We've always felt like the Kowa 77s and the 88 were, right, the older version of the 88 were right in there, if not a touch better. Swirl build quality is unmatched. Justin was just commenting on the rubberized coating. I mean, they're phenomenal. They're a great company. If it's just glass as your decision, Kowa, I think, is right there, this 88. And then right now, your pound for pound best scope for me, that ATS 65 is fantastic.
Absolutely, I agree. It's definitely performing. I really thought the 77, again, as usual, was going to run away with this, but that ATS 65 it just feels like it's more comfortable. It feels like it's keeping its crispness, and the 77 does start to feel like it's fading a little bit. Again, though, that 88 it's going to be a while before it's fading.
80. If I'm on a hunt where I don't care about size or weight, which is basically never, but maybe it's a mountain goat hunt or a sheep hunt or something like that, that 88 is what I would be packing.
Yeah.
And then 65.
On these little guys, in terms of how they compare right now, the Kowa is just a little bit crisper, and actually I think we've all agreed it's a little bit brighter. Again, though, it's hard to stay in that perfect spot where the STC, it's got a more comfortable eyepiece. So, low light performance, you got to hand it to the Kowa a little bit there.
Yeah, and I think we should, one thing I've noticed is just on different days, different atmospheric conditions, certain glass performs better than others. Like I said, when I first had these two scopes, I thought the ATC, the STC was a significantly better scope, spent 10 minutes with it. Different days, glass just looks better than others. Justin, behind the camera here, he's kind of actually struggling with the 88, where Rob and I are loving it, and so everyone's eye sees things a little bit differently. We'll certainly kind of do this review again on a different conditions day and see if we get different results.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of always testing stuff. As often as I can, scouting, I'm trying to bring one or two different spotters with different configurations just to see how they perform. But then you always have your go-tos, and for me, it's been that 77 for a long time, but it might get changed.
The ATS 65, they've improved, and it's because when Jason and I did on SNS Archery, I don't know if that blog still exists.
Yeah, it does.
That old scope review, it's 10 years old now. That ATS did not compare with the ATX and stuff, so they've improved some things, and it's a very impressive scope right now. thanks for tuning in. For more information, check us out at snsarchery.com.
It just kills me that thing's so good.
I know.